I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We've got a great show for you here today. So many good topics. So many, each more interesting than the last. Andrew Kuo, are you ready to talk about Tokyo Olympics, grillmasters, the gay cold, finals ratings? How much do you want this?
I want it more than Lonzo Ball. Born ready, man. Stupendous. I'm in A game form. The A team over here.
I feel like I'm in, like right now, as we speak, like H game. You know, like J game. I feel like there's so many tiers you don't even get to. Oh, yeah, it was more my B game. Like, what's W game? X game. The X games.
Yeah. I always wondered, like, with like grading restaurants and stuff, like, why do we stop at D or F? Let's go. Do we want to grade this enough?
Like
Z.
the X games, most people think it was, because it was kind of like alt. No, it was just they were really bad at the sport.
Right. It was the worst of the worst.
No, that's the Z games. But X games pretty bad. A lot of those guys now, after years and years of improvement, are in the W games.
I always wondered why we always have like top 10 lists and not a smidgen more of like worst 10 lists. I guess that's a hater ass move, but it would be funny with like food and basketball players. I always wanted Food Network to do a show like the worst thing I ever ate.
I do like this idea of restaurants having like just like an M on the side. You're like, fuck, an M.
Damn, that got hit with an S, dude. Don't eat that shit. It's a fucking T.
Oh.
Bad news, guys. We got a W today.
out of what? Well, A being the best.
Yeah, not a good day for us. But there's always tomorrow, fellas.
Even with the minuses, even adds another nice little wrinkle. Like, yeah, we got a V plus. Like, it's bad, but it's not a V.
It's not a V minus. Dude, I had a Tiger mom who told me growing up that an A minus was unacceptable. Isn't that crazy? That's just crazy. It's like the difference between a 93 and a 94. Don't worry, I got A pluses straight up, man. Everything A plus.
It's so hard to care about the difference between a 93 and a 95.
But when you're a child,
you're a Tiger mom. I'm saying just as a grown adult, you're like, I'm sorry, what? The difference between a 93 and a 95? I mean, those both seem really good. Nice job, Junior.
Dude, I've heard stories of parents in New York City trying to get their kids into the school system, and they have to take these tests, and it's like, my kid had to get a 98, but he got a 97, so we didn't get into the school. I'm like,
yeah, nice job, moron child.
Yeah, I'm like, what? It's like, how am I going to be... Yeah, I remember having this conversation with my buddy. He's like, how am I going to be mad at my kid? He got a 97. I'm like disappointed I can't go to the school right next to our house. But he got a 97. Like, here you go, buddy. Here's all the ice cream I promised you.
How is he ever going to become mayor of New York City with grades like that?
Well, first you got to live in New Jersey. Second, you have to dine solely on Premio and styrofoam salmon. And
my stupid kid can't even hide the gabagool. Oh,
listen,
not mayor candidacy caliber.
He's going to have to get one of those D minuses if he wants to be a cop. And then mayor of New York City.
Your Capicola stashing grade, you got like a J plus. It's just not good enough.
I don't know, man. Should we talk about Eric Adams being officially...
It's official. Your guy did it. You're the Eric Adams day one. I was the de Blasio guy. You're the Eric Adams man.
I thought you were Stringer, and I was full Eric Adams. I opened that thing, that ballot. I was looking for that bubble that said, like, the cop who kind of lies about everything. Oh, the funny cop who lies about everything.
No. The funny Jersey cop who lies constantly. That guy.
Listen, we should have known when his favorite band was Bon Jovi. His favorite player was Keith Van Horn. The writing was on the wall.
No, you've been singing his praises for years. He was wearing those hats around that said Nets.
Yeah, I've been really into his. He's been wearing those Simpsons Sopranos tees that I love so much. The interns love so much. His favorite. What is New Jersey's most famous food other than gabagool? Because that's like a Sopranos vibe.
Like roast beef and Mutz.
Is it called something special like
No, I
pit
think
beef
it's.
or
I think
something?
it's. Oh, that I don't know. I think it's roast beef and Mutz.
What's a moot?
Mozzarella.
I was like, who's Mutz? And do we have to fight him? Roast beef and mozzarella, I've never had that. It sounds fine and delicious,
It's a banger.
yeah, it sounds good, man. I don't like roast beef because it's too tinny. Do you ever get that vibe? Like the blood in it is a little, it strikes me as a little like eating a bunch of Nichols. You know, when at one point in your life you eat a bunch of Nichols.
Yeah, I mean, I ate some Nichols yesterday. And I loved
With some
them.
moot.
With a little bit of Mutz. But the roast beef, there's a really famous roast beef spot that's fantastic.
Is it like beef on weck? Like there's all these different roast beef.
I don't really know what
sandwiches.
beef on wick is. That sounds like it's from Buffalo or some shit.
Yeah, it does. Everything weird, everything affordable, strange, and delicious sounds like it's from Buffalo or Rochester. Shout out to Rochester.
Well, there's a spot in Hoboken called Fiore Deli. And I think that's the one that I've had, I believe that I've had delivered, or I've had friends deliver it from making Jersey runs. I think it's from that spot. And I believe it's the roast beef and Mutz. That's like their main thing. And it was spectacular. And you order one, but it's basically two sandwiches connected, and it's enormous.
Because 90% of sandwiches are too big.
This is 100% too big.
Does New Jersey proper think Hoboken is fraudulent?
I mean, you're the Eric Adams guy. You're the one who knows these intricacies of the Garden State, not me.
Okay, let me rephrase this. As a Scott Stringer day one, do you think Hoboken is fraudulent?
From my vantage point on the Upper West Side, as a Stringer guy,
Stringer, baby.
Stringer Bell over here.
I only say that because it's very easy to get to from New York City. It had a lot back in the day. It had a lot of clubs and bars that we went to and bands played. I don't know. It felt like an appendage of New York City, as opposed to like when people grow up in like North Jersey, they're like, listen, there's a big difference between North Jersey
Right,
and
right.
South
Well,
Jersey.
Hoboken became a place for young people, specifically guys who worked in finance, to move in the probably late 90s and early 2000s. It was kind of a bridge and tunnel cliche, like, oh, here come the guys from like Hoboken. And I don't know if that still exists. It might. They may have just started moving to the city. Maybe Jersey City has some of that, but I think Jersey City has a reputation for being kind of cooler and it being a little more interesting, but there's like kind of like more art and food and like kind of a Brooklyn-esque, if you will, vibe to people moving to Jersey City. Hoboken definitely had a stigma that was very specific in the Sex and the City era.
Oh. Wait, can you say Hoboken again?
Is it Hoboken or Hoboken?
I don't
Hoboken.
know.
Hoboken?
I've never
Hoboken.
questioned the pronunciation of this word until right now. I've always said Hoboken.
I say things wrong all the time, so
no.
I can't be trusted at all.
No, but it's all good. You've questioned it. This has become a trippy conversation about
Hoboken.
Hoboken because now I'm questioning everything.
Maybe it's Hoboken.
Hoboken is a great
Hoboken.
sounding word, though.
But I say Keith Van Horn.
And I say Van Baker.
Keith Van Hoboken.
Well, I used to go to Hoboken all the time there was a club called Maxwell's back in the day.
Then I'm going to say your pronunciation is probably correct.
I've always heard Hoboken, but I say stuff wrong all the time.
Well, I guess we're at a real impasse here.
That's right. I think it's Hoboken, but I have a New York accent I've been told. I can't.
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna say it's Hoboken.
Yeah. Well, shit. Back in the day, they had like this large pizza slice that was kind of rare. This was like the 90s, but they had us, with those oversized pizza spots. And it's like, buy the slice, and the joke was like it was the size of a small child. And we go for that, and the pizza wasn't necessarily better. It was just bigger. And this was before social media and like everyone having a camera in their pocket. So we would just go there to eat it, which was very odd.
What was that place on the Upper West Side? This is real stringer talk. Was it Nick's Pizza that had like those enormous slices? They were just
near Columbia, right?
Big.
It was Upper West Side. You say
Upper West Side. It was like the 70s, I think. But
Yeah,
same
I know
deal.
what you're talking about.
It was
yeah.
basically like a quarter of a pie, and
Yeah.
like, here's your slice.
That'll be $13.99. Here's your slice. And I get that in the era of influencer stuff, which I'm into. But I'm saying back in the day, we'd just go there and eat it. We'd like giggle and just eat our enormous pizza and go down the street and see Fugazi for $5.
Yeah, I think I was talking about Big Nick's. I think that's the spot it was called. But that's a good idea, though. You just say like, oh yeah, we have a burrito, but it's really just like the size of a picnic table, and we're gonna charge you a lot. But it's like the biggest burritos in town. You don't even have to be good. You can just single yourself out for volume.
Not to mirror our grading conversation, but then couldn't you have like small nicks? It's like, oh, this is the smallest slice of pizza.
Smallest burritos in town.
That'll be 75 cents, sir.
This is a dumpling, sir. It's a burrito.
Yeah. Is a burrito a dumpling? I mean, we don't have to get into this stuff, but sure, right? I think someone tried to end the hot dog as a sandwich conversation once and for all this week. Good luck with that, buddy.
I like this idea, like the smallest slice in town.
Yeah, tiny nicks. It's like back in my heyday. It's like, oh, I had like 15 beers last night. It's like, well, yeah, I had one of those 10 ounces.
Yeah, but they have the smallest beers in town.
Yeah.
I like a piece of pizza that's the size of an origami crane's wing.
Yo, can you get a picture of me with this small ass slice of pizza? Yo, tag me.
Smallest beers and pizza in town.
Yeah. Hashtag smallest pizza and beers in town. God.
Hey, they serve beer by the thimble. It's crazy. You can have so many.
I remember being outraged when I saw Being John Malkovich, when like the cynical gag. I love cynicism. We can talk about Conan O'Brien later if you want to, but like they had the artist who was like the smallest painter in the world, and they had like little magnifying glasses to look at the art, and I was like, that's annoying to me on so many levels. It's just like too deeply angry, but also kind of funny, but also interesting. I was very confused.
I mean, I respect when you're confused.
I'm confused all the time, so I get all the respect. That's cool.
Well,
Nothing doesn't confuse me.
The reason that I was not on my A game over the last week was I caught what they're calling in New York City a case of the gay cold. Now I say this is not a homophobic slur. This is not something that the straight community has come up with to describe a cold. It's a cold that emanated out of the gay community, and specifically was passed around during Pride Week. So while I was out at some parties this last week, apparently I got a little case of what they're calling the gay cold. At this point, it's the ally ailment, I would say. It is crossed over. I know at least 6 people who have this same cold. And you may have it, gentle listener. It starts out as a sore throat and like pressure in your sinuses and your ears. And then it just kind of fades out and you have a sore throat for like a week and change.
Yeah. When I first
It sucks.
When I first heard this, I was as confused as ever because I thought someone was talking about J. Cole because they said it really fast, and it baffled me. It's just like, yeah, I don't feel great. No disrespect to that name. It's not about anything. It's about Pride Week, and I'm like, I'm so confused. I'm trying to put this all together like Ben Affleck and The Accountant, but it became clear to me what they were talking about. And the second confusion I had was that's a tough way to name something that is not good. And I think our friends who say it mean no disrespect by it, but it's a tough one to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are saying this with the understanding that you get the context as a listener. Mm-hmm. Like if you word search it on Twitter, like I just did right now, it's like, oh, first one is heard the gay cold is in Rochester now.
Yeah.
The way I never got COVID but got gay cold.
Yeah.
Is it altitude sickness or the gay cold?
Yeah. And it's an odd signifier, right? Because viruses pass through the gay community has been a huge part of our history as a country, and that kind of comes to mind, the AIDS crisis. But there is a sense of, no pun intended, a pride with it, right? Because as me and you both know, living in New York, like everything cool happens with that community. If you want like a cool neighborhood, you get those people to move in. If you want a cool bar, I just opened a bar. It's like, okay, how do we make it like LGBTQ friendly? Because they are the gatekeepers of everything cool in New York City, in my opinion. So when someone says something like the gay cold, it's a sense of pride, right? Being like, I have nothing to be ashamed of.
Yes, no pun intended.
Yeah.
When I talked to one of my friends, she was like, oh, you got the gay cold. I have it too. Everyone has the gay cold. And I was like, well, all right then. Like Caitlin Phillips, friend of the pod, just tweeted, literally my entire friend group has been felled by gay cold, which seems like good politics somehow.
Yeah, and this checks out because I don't have the gay cold, and I have not been cool or ever been cool in my life. But, there was a time I went out more, and I wish I had the gay cold, man. It's like everyone talking about it on my feed. I'm just like, oh, I wasn't. It's like a form of FOMO, kind of. I was like, oh, I wasn't invited to that cool party that everyone got sick at.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw you for dinner, and someone who was sitting next to me at that dinner
had it,
ended up getting it, and I ended up getting it. So, like, you may have been around the gay cold. You were so close to getting the gay cold.
Am I the gay cold? Should I get that tattoo on my face?
Maybe you are so cool that you gave us the gay cold, and you didn't even know. You're just a gay cold carrier.
Can the gay cold be asymptomatic? It has to be symptomatic, right?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Can a cold be asymptomatic? Like, maybe? I don't
Probably.
know. It's wild that we learned so much about COVID and know nothing about the flu or the cold. If someone said, how does the cold get past? I'm like, I don't know. I'm actually not sure. From, like, Pride Week? I don't know.
Yeah. I got hiccups from supporting my neighbors.
Yeah, I got the ally ailment.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but like I think we're going to go through different versions of cold strains and flu strains that are going to freak us out. The whole Delta variant thing, I think, is a real test of our fortitude, our mental fortitude, because it is something that is real, but also maybe not deadly, and there's ways to prevent it, and it's a whole bunch of stuff rolled up into one, right?
Yeah, I mean, also, the Drunken Canal tweeted, the CDC just confirmed that the United States of America is working on a vaccine for the gay cold. But for me, I think what's, to your point, is like the end point for COVID is not that it's going to be gone. It's that it will be treated with the gravity of a cold, right? The gravity of the flu. Like, get your vaccine, don't get it. If you're an older person, it might take you out. But overall, it's like you can go back to living your life with the cognizance that, like, sometimes you will get it. It's going to happen at some point.
Well, but it's like it just smallpox, won't.
Right, but the risk is so mitigated by vaccines and its lack of what's the word I'm looking for? Its lack of volume, within a community that, like, oh, you just go out, you get it. Like you could get unlucky. You could go to a party, you're a breakthrough case. And, like, it's going to suck. You'll have COVID for a few days, but you'll get back to your life like you do with any cold. I think that's, like, the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The more we go through different phases of, like, talking about viruses, the less I feel like I know about how I feel about them. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's something I don't really have a take on, man.
I just feel like we've come to the conclusion that the common cold is going to be here, that the flu is going to be here. They can't be eliminated. And we're also not going to change the way that we spend our life due to those things. And I'm saying the goal is to put COVID into that category as something that you're just sort of aware is in the options of things you can catch by being out and about.
I mean, it's morphed into something that maybe my confusion there was, it's morphed into something that isn't about like science or a virus or like suppressing some sort of contractable thing. It's become, cultural, whatever. People being angry at masks. It's been sweltering in New York City this week, and I've been masking it up, man. I wear my mask everywhere.
The last masked man standing.
I don't know. There's like, as there is with the gay cold community, there's like a community of people I know or I see on my feed who are like, yeah, in Asia, it's like if you have a little like sore throat, you wear a mask to protect your neighbors. So like it should be no different here. If you ask me to take my mask off, like sure, I know I'm safe, but like I don't feel great because I have a version of the gay cold. So I'm going to keep my mask on so I don't give someone else a version of the gay cold.
I think that's a healthy approach.
I think so.
I would say over the last, not even to get into like masking talk. I'm just saying it felt like over the last month and a half, especially with temperatures rising, it went from like
it's crazy.
People hitting their vaccine like second week. I felt like it went from 85%, at least in the neighborhoods where I'm around, to under 1% in terms of like outdoor masking, which is what's supposed to be happening in terms of people getting vaccinated and being outdoors and so forth. But like it's been precipitous. I'm bringing this up to say what we've been fortunate about is that the United States threw a lot of money at the problem and got a bunch of vaccines. And yes, there are issues with trying to convince people to take them and vaccine skepticism, et cetera, et cetera. But you can get them if you want. And the segue here is to the Tokyo Olympics, where, from my understanding, they have not had the same kind of rollout. And they are having spikes in cases. Delta's doing its damn thing over there. And the Olympics are looming. Give me a take, Quo.
The Olympics. I love the Olympics. I mean, I'll watch someone arm wrestle. I'll watch someone like race someone else to a stoplight. So I love anything like this, especially on a world stage. It's awesome. I want to see skateboarders competing against each other for the first time. But the Olympics has been broken forever, right? Like we found out about its despair, kind of, like it's in a unrepairable form. And to have the 2020 Olympics coincide with the virus, I'm just like, yo, we don't have to do this. Like whoever lost money, like in one way or another, we know you're going to lose a lot of money anyway. It's like, we'll try to figure it out. It's just money. But them going forward with it and declaring Tokyo like in a state of emergency just for like ceremony, it's like, right, okay, like happiness has to be baked into everything. So we want to watch games, but we don't really need this, right? No one's asking for the Olympics.
I'm torn because I don't think it is a great precedent to have people from all over the world, from places with various states of inoculation, all coming into one enclosed place where they're inevitably going to come in contact with each other and then go back home. Like even beyond its danger to Japan as a host, just the amount of people coming into contact with each other doesn't seem great. I was going to also say, I do have a lot of sympathy for the athletes though, because unless we're just going to say, okay, this is next year instead, your window for being the best in the world and winning a gold medal is pretty finite in most cases. So like missing an Olympics and then just saying, hey, check back, and there's an 8-year gap between the last couple Olympics instead of 4. if that's how it ends up shaking out. That's rough for someone who really views an Olympic gold as the validation of their athletic career. That's rugged. That's a fucking bummer.
I agree. I mean, individually, the disappointment of these athletes is palpable, but the downside is death. So, like, I think COVID has kind of changed the paradigm for all of that kind of stuff. Like, oh, I missed my athletic window. It's just like, well, what happened? It's like, oh, there was a threat of like mass deaths if we do this thing. And like, if COVID was a movie villain, if it was like a horror movie villain, it would be almost defeated. It'd be like gasping, kind of still alive in the burning house. And then you told it, it's like, okay, we're all going to get together from all over parts of the world into one concentrated area because we think we have this under control. No fans in the stands, just like all these athletes together competing. That's like Jason Voorhees, like with his hand coming up and like finding strength again, right?
Well, my other thing is, I legitimately do not know the answer to this. Are all the athletes going there required to be vaccinated? I don't know.
I believe so. I also don't know for sure, but I can't imagine them not being like, you don't have to get vaccinated.
No,
you know,
me
like
neither.
I think they are vaccinated, especially without fans in the stands. I
I mean, if that's the case, right? Just for the sake of argument, which I do not know is the case. If that's the case, if everyone's vaccinated, and we're saying there aren't going to be fans, then who cares, right? I just mean, how is that any different from New York opening back up and allowing people to go to games and all this? Yeah. The interactions of restaurants and supermarkets without masks if you're vaccinated. I mean, that's what we've come up with. Now, granted, I don't know how all these athletes were vaccinated or which
Right.
ones they had. I don't know
question.
any of that kind of shit. But I'm saying, I don't know, my opinion, I guess, is if these athletes are all vaccinated, then so what? That's kind of my thing, I guess.
This whole year and a half has been a test in suspending our disbelief, right? I know friends who are like, yo, they told us we don't have to wear masks, so we're good. And then like cities are like, you have to wear your mask again. I'm like, there's no absolute anywhere. And I think on paper, a bubble is safe because you've created a safe thing. North Korea thought they had a bubble.
But you don't need a bubble,
Something
though.
got in.
You don't need a bubble.
Just in theory.
You're right, but I'm saying there's no reason for the Olympics to be a bubble. You can not have fans there. You can exercise precaution and social distancing and all that, but it doesn't need to be a bubble if everyone is actually vaccinated.
And this is the suspension of disbelief thing, being like, hey, we're being safe. Everyone's vaccinated. We're keeping our 6 feet of separation. What could go wrong? I'm like, a ton. But yes, on paper, everything is safe. The rules are there. Follow the rules and no one gets it. But if someone gets it, who would be shocked, right? It's like,
Oh, I think you will still end up with have people getting a breakthrough case or things like that. I think the main part that gets me a little skeevy is that you just have like an unprecedented smorgasbord of people from like different places with different vaccines and different strains potentially coming to the same spot. That to me is the part that's gets me a little queasy. I'm like, oh wow, you can get the Peruvian Sigma variant over there with the Indian Delta variant. We might be able to come up with J- out of that.
yo, Johnson & Johnson blew a 3-1 lead, man. That was the one. And now you're just like, oh, I got the Johnson & Johnson. Pfizer, boys.
I just want to know what the gay cold vaccine is and when we're getting it.
It's called wearing a mask. But yeah, the Tokyo state of emergency is funny. It's like restaurants are not allowed to serve alcohol, but we won't give tickets, and you can kind of do it. But
Interesting. Seems slightly familiar.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's more of a statement of concern. It's more like a legal procedure, right? Japan's like, hey, we told you we had no responsibilities. You're the ones who went ahead and like had a party with a bunch of malted Fireball and got sick. It's not our fault.
I also just don't really care about the Olympics.
Well, this is the thing, right? Like, if you don't, how much do we care about it? Like, I care about it because as I said, I'll watch any damn thing.
My sympathy is solely with the athletes. That's it. That people not being able to do and compete at the highest level over like an 8-year period seems like really rough. But I don't watch the Olympics. I don't care about the events. Really? No.
I know. I have friends who don't watch it too. I get it. I like the opening and closing ceremonies. I like watching NBA players on the court. I love tennis. There's some cool stuff going on, man. Like skateboarding for the first time is awesome. Like our buddies from Max Fish are going to be in the Olympics. Like,
oh, that's sick.
That's cool, man. Like, I don't know. I'll watch any damn thing. I like diving. I like, one of my friends says events like swimming, or the 100-meter dash aren't a sport. They're just like a performance measurement, which is interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I watch basketball. I'll watch some of the international teams, obviously because there's NBA players there, and occasionally there'll be a cool prospect like a Luka Doncic or Ricky Rubio.
Christian Laettner energy.
Right, but guys you get to see in the Olympics before they make it over to the NBA, and you can sort of see them for the first time against NBA caliber competition.
Yeah,
so I'll watch that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, I think some of the gymnastics are incredible, but that's kind of it. Like, I don't watch sprinting. I don't watch discus.
No Usain Bolt energy? He was fun, man.
From my understanding is he was fast as hell.
Dude, he started laughing at the end of the 100-meter dash.
I watched his clips just because they're
insane. He's insane.
They're outrageous.
Yeah. A volleyball is cool. I don't know. I mean, ping pong is awesome.
I don't dislike any of these sports. I'm saying me personally, I don't spend time being like, oh shit, volleyball's on. Like that's cool. I follow one sport. I don't follow other ones. That doesn't mean the other ones aren't reasonable to play. Like, oh, you like javelin? Like, go off.
Oh, I love it. Let me ask you an adjacent question. No sin bin. But the Euro Cup is happening now, and England is in the finals. And there's been some chatter of like, well, how can I root for England, which is the root of so much world conflict in the last century or 2 centuries or history? It's just like, I don't want to root for that flag. Like, they've been the villain on the world stage for so long.
I'm going to root for a good guy like Spain.
Yeah, it's so weird, right? And like, I'm like,
Portugal.
Well, people were rooting for Denmark, but I was like, if you go back far enough, I'm sure there's a jerk in Denmark. But like, how are you going to do this? But I love international stuff because it's loaded with all these details.
At the same time, as someone who will always root against Duke because of what I think they stand for, I can 100% understand people saying, fuck UK. I'm rooting against them because they stand for something that I don't like, and that's colonialism. Cool. Like, I think Duke represents something that the players on the court do not necessarily represent. I don't think Zion Williamson or RJ Barrett represents the legacy of Duke and what it means to me, but I'm always going to root against them as a result. Not in the pros, not in, plenty of guys from the one and done bus factory. I have nothing against them at all. Go off. But when they're wearing Duke, I will never root for their team.
Yeah, totally.
You say love Grayson Allen.
Yeah. he's pretty good. It's complicated, right? And I think when Kyrie besmirched Lucky the Leprechaun, that kind of came up like,
which is funny because he went to Duke.
Yeah, exactly. Barely 11 games. But like, people were angry about it, and then people were angry at the people getting angry about it. Cop on cop behavior, as social media goes. But I could see the original point being like, symbols matter, flags matter. Vlade Divac's waving a flag and ruining his relationship with his best friend, like, that was heavy stuff. And of course, as someone who makes their second living in the visual arts, like, symbols mean a lot. So when Harry Kane is waving a British or a flag of his country, that's heavy, man. It's interesting. I don't know. I get it. If people say, I don't want to root for Russia because of what they represent, or Human
China
rights stuff.
because of what they represent. I mean,
yeah.
That's no different from saying, I don't want to root for UK because they colonized like 3/4 of the fucking planet. Like valid.
Yeah.
Go off.
Sort of like how the Knicks colonized the entire NBA, but in a good way. We give away helpful players like Bobby Portis and Thanasis Antetokounmpo.
Here's a question. Would you say that the average person around the globe who is not an American roots against America in international competitions for this reason? Or are they sympathetic to America?
The most, there's going to be a ton of LeBron James haters, right? I love this country, so put that on the table. I'm proud to be an American. My parents were immigrants from Taiwan. I'm psyched on my nationality, but I do think, yeah, America does a lot of awful stuff, and I think it's okay to put that through the lens, like view the Olympics through that lens. I think that's totally fair, and I think the world gets a big kick out of America being so bad at soccer, no sin bin, and I don't think that's any different than the way they see us in the Olympics.
Yeah, I think that there is interest in America as a exporter of cultural items, whether that's film or music or blue jeans, ideas, no doubt. And I think a lot of those things are enjoyed by young people across the globe. But when U.S. is playing against, I don't know, like any team,
any team,
pick a team to be named later.
Yeah,
is like
you root against.
Right, is a kid in any country. They're like, go USA. I'm kind of like, probably not.
But how do you explain the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Yankees? Or the Los Angeles Lakers. People, it's just like sports, right? It's like wearing a T-shirt that says basketball on it. It's just like people who just tune into the Olympics who aren't invested maybe in world politics or this kind of thinking might be like, America's cool. I want to go to America.
Yeah,
you know?
but like you're, little Johnny in Azerbaijan staring up at those weird, like reflective buildings in Baku, and you're like, go USA. I don't know.
I don't know either, but America's still a very popular place, and I think it still has like some good standing. But this is the whole politics thing that we don't have to get into, which is like, how come? Well, maybe we should, like Ted Cruz being like, listen, if you medal in a competition and you don't respect our flag, why do you hate our country? I'm like, no, they love our country. It's very fraught with nuance, and there's no way out of it.
I mean, my general take is like, I understand the power of symbols, but I'm also like, aren't we adults here? We're just adults. Like, stop talking about flags. I just don't, and I don't know. Like, I'm not, that being arbitrarily born in the United States as I was, which is different from your path here. Mm-hmm. I just was born here. My parents were born here. Their parents were born here. Mm-hmm. I don't have any particular feeling that it was chosen for me. It's just where I was created and popped up. So like to say, oh, I want the U.S. to win because it's our country. Like I root for the U.S. when the athletes are familiar. Like, if given the choice between the American and someone in another country, like, yes, U.S., great. Cool.
I mean, U.S. is such a new country, right? Like, it's only a few hundred years old, and it just feels like an aggregated version of the world to me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. America on that stage just kind of represents, like, pieces of world history put into a different box with a different idea, whether, however you think democracy behaves or whatever, the Constitution. But it is a filtering of everyone else. It's like an amalgamation, right?
I've been out in Europe during World Cup, Euro Cup at various times, and gone to watch, the finals in Germany when Germany was in it and they lost, mm-hmm. or being in France during their games. And that's a different kind of energy than I personally would ever feel about the U.S. when everyone's like, we got to go
intense.
watch like the French game, and everyone's at bars, and literally every single person is watching it, and it's like, oh my God, we win. I can't feel that sense of nationalism or pride for a national team, but maybe that's because I don't like soccer, which is the only sport that applies to.
Dude, if you watch a footy match, there is going to be immediately shots of so many people in the fans crying. Like, if England scores a goal, you could see they just pan to people in the crowd on the other team just like weeping. And I'm like, that doesn't quite happen at basketball games or baseball games. Sure, people get emotional, but you're right, it's not the same. But it's funny, this country is so young and we don't care about footy, but I feel that way kind of about like rap music, and like if I cared about country music, because country music is an amazing art form that I think is like deeply unique to America. And then it's like, thankfully in our lifetime, rap. So when UK grime kind of got, yes, I get to mention grime. When that was a thing, I felt an immense sense of pride, because not only of being in New York, but being an American, I was just like, this was a huge contribution to the world. I love it.
Kind of like me when RX Poppy and RX Nephew drop.
You still, yeah, I'm into it. I mean, I'm paying attention now because of you.
It's perfect. That's all I ask. I think basketball, which is the only sport I care about, does not have that same kind of international like intrigue. I mean, maybe at some point when you were sending the U.S. athletes and it was the Cold War and they were going out there, playing against Arvydas Sabonis, maybe some of that could have come into play, or like the Miracle on Ice. But I just can't care enough about any sports where that would necessarily happen. But we'd be remiss not to mention like rugby and cricket as being two other ones that have like huge national followings.
Cricket's cool. Yeah.
But that just are irrelevant in the U.S. But people go off for that too.
Am I un-American when I say I think the Dream Team was lame? I thought it was cool. The marketing was cool. I love all like the hoopla around it. I was a kid, but like I was like, this is unfair. You just want to go and stomp everybody. Of course, these are the best players. They invented the game. No one has been playing this game long enough. So you're gonna send Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson just to stomp everyone out? Come on.
I thought the games themselves were lame. I thought seeing those guys on the same court
Very cool.
was cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the real appeal of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, watching them, whip the shit out of a team by like 60 points was not fun, even if you liked watching alley-oops and dunks and things like that. Like, well, of course they did. These are the best players on the planet, and they're on one team. But it was cool seeing those specific guys who were kind of, at that point, were really kind of two different generations too. It was kind of like the end game for the Birds and the Magics and those guys as well.
For sure. Yeah, it was a way to celebrate the league as the NBA was losing grasp of the power, as European teams were learning how to play the game. I mean, it is cool in a sense that it minted like legends like Carlos Arroyo, right? Like, remember when Puerto Rico beat Team USA? Like, that was super cool. And I was rooting against the American team then, am I mistaken? Did Yao Ming kind of play the U.S. before he was drafted into the NBA? I kind of remember that in the recesses of my memory being like kind of a cool moment, seeing him and rooting against the USA team just because this guy was fascinating.
I don't think you're wrong, but I can't specifically remember it.
Yeah, I could definitely be wrong. I could have made that up. Could have been a dream. I like Yao Ming. He was cool. He was an olive branch to the U.S. But yeah, I mean, will you be tuning in to see kick flips and pressure flips and backslides in the Olympics this year?
No, I'm glad it's there. Like, there's no reason that skateboarding shouldn't be in it, and javelin is.
Are you going to watch the breakdancing competition?
I'm going to tune in for the beatboxing versus the graffiti competition.
Damian Lillard didn't want it enough, man. Maybe he
Tyler Johnson wins a silver in ciphering.
Maybe Dame needs to concentrate and go into the cipher first and be the last to leave the cipher.
He just needs to focus on his game this offseason and not spending it with bars.
Speaking of bars, you grill anything this weekend?
All right, I can see that.
You know, bars on the grill.
I
Grill
don't know.
describes the bars of the surface.
No, I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Cool.
I did not, but I will say this: there was the article that I'm sure you're referring to. I forget where it ran initially, like Axios or some shit. I don't know about that grilling was overrated and is in fact actually bad. A brilliant hate click gambit for sure. Mm-hmm. Let's take something that everyone agrees is good and say it actually sucks. Well played. Respect.
Yeah.
Are you here to agree that grilling is bad? 'Cause that sounds like some shit that you would do.
I did not click on that either because it is clearly clickbait. And,
Yeah, I didn't click it either. Yeah.
and it's not interesting enough. I'm like, oh, I know this take because I gotta agree with it. Fuck your life. Yeah. I only in that like, yo, come on. Most barbecues you go to are not that tasty. It's cool to see your friends. It's cool to sip a nice cold malted fireball, but like with your homies. But like grilling as like a delicacy, as a way to prepare food, it's hit or miss, you know. I think I'm not a huge barbecue fan, just in terms of the food, the ethics of it, whatever. We're just talking about the food here. If it's done well, it's amazing, of course. Like, you get a real grill master, a pit master, it's awesome, but it's a lot of hassle for not a lot of payoff. In your 20s, it's cool when you're single and ready to mingle, but after that, it's just a big headache.
I have some thoughts about this. You are correct that most of the time when a random person is grilling, it is not going to be a great experience as far as food goes. But it is also specifically casual in that way. Like, there's going to be hot dogs, there's going to be burgers, maybe there'll be some chicken.
Delicious.
There's going to maybe some vegetables. And these are things that do not require someone to be a good cook.
No.
And it's really like, all right, throw some burgers down, throw some dogs down.
Yeah.
We grilled. Mm-hmm. But I do think, as a cooking technique, that if you care about what you're doing,
It's awesome.
it can be more challenging. You know, I'm not some grill master with like asymmetrical indirect heat and all these other tactics to get things to cook exactly the right way. Mm-hmm. But I do think if you are fairly diligent and do things well, you can cook really good stuff on the grill, and you don't have to heat up your house, and it's the summer and it's outdoors, and like, I do think there's a high potential for bad food off the grill. It's overcooked or it gets burned or whatever. There's just less quality control than putting something in a pan or putting it in
Gas
the
grills
oven
are
and saying,
lame. Yeah.
lame. Yeah, this does not apply to gas grill.
Yeah.
There are hassles involved with it, but I do think salt, pepper, olive oil, some vegetables, put them on the grill for a little while. They're always kind of great.
Yeah, I get with that for sure. Maybe I have a...
Yeah, I'm just saying, I feel like there's the typical grill, which is like basic picnic staples that are, there's generally not going to be that good or that bad. They're the same shit unless someone just burns the hell out of them. Mm-hmm. But but if someone's doing vegetables on the grill, doing a fish on the grill, went to my buddy's house and he like buried this whole fish like in the coals, that was fucking banging.
Yeah, I mean...
It can be done, is all I'm saying. You just gotta want it more.
Some shrimp, some of the Barbie are delicious and some are not. And like, maybe I have a Pavlovian thing to it because I'll walk into MSG and hear the announcer and just feel like bad and dread and that big L on my forehead, just like, this team sucks. It's like, yeah, Carmelo Anthony. I'm like, ugh. When I smell like coals and grill stuff around, and when I hear the sounds, I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be hours of cleanup. I hate it. This is gonna be so many random like hot dog bags everywhere and like paper plates to clean up. But
I mean, I also don't have outdoor space. So for me, it's like a treat to cook outdoors.
yeah, it's cool. I mean, God, man, I have not been interested in barbecuing for a decade or so. I'm almost just like, what are you guys doing afterwards? Let's go hit up.
I don't
Times
really
Square.
have an interest in like making barbecue per se.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're gonna have like a barbecue and cook up all these lavish meats. I just like the idea of cooking a fairly normal meal outside over flames. I think that's fun. I like being outdoors. I don't get to do it whenever I want,
Yeah.
so it feels like a treat. But have you ever gone to like the public park ones? They have
Oh,
the
yeah.
picnic tables, and like to me, it's more difficult to have a good meal in that kind of situation. You really need someone who has like a nice little setup, access to their kitchen, and a plan.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Going into a barbecue, make sure you eat food before you go to a barbecue. Because there's a 40% chance you won't get that much food, which is fine. You just have to know you won't. But yeah, I don't want to sound like a hater,
You
but
do. You sound like a huge barbecue hater. You sound like you agree
grill.
that grilling is bad.
well, I read that headline and I'm like, that's fair. Like, I'll go to a barbecue. Am I looking for a barbecue? Hells no. But I also don't like baking out in the sun. Like around a fire. I'm like, yo, this might be cool at night, which happens all the time, or like in the fall or spring. But July 4th, I'm just like, I get why people don't like this. It's not my favorite thing either.
I guess my thing is, it's all about expectations. If you are just going to a barbecue in the park, there's no expectation that the food is going to be anything other than like mediocre Hebrew National hot dogs.
That's the best thing
And-
to eat at a barbecue, though.
I agree. Other than Zweigel's from Rochester, red and white hots, unbelievable. Pop open, killer. Best hot dogs in the game. Hands down.
Someone mentioned this to me on Twitter. What are Red Hots good? What are Red Hots? I don't
Red
know what
hots
they
are just kind of like your normal hot dog. Whites are more of like a brat.
Oh, I like brats. Yeah,
They're
Red Hots
delicious.
are they more red than like a Nathan's dog? Are they like
no, but the
especially
pop
red?
open ones are great because you cook them and then when the heat starts really getting in there, then they split.
Yum.
Not into a zillion fragments, but the shell kind of opens up and then it sort of splits out.
Yeah.
Anyway, Zweigels are fantastic. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Although I am deeply, of course, biased.
I know.
They should go on top of a trash plate or garbage plate.
The barbecue rankings are undisputable to me. It's a grilled hot dog, and then everything else.
Portland has the best pizza. It's the best pizza city.
Okay, what happened with that? I didn't click on that shit either.
I didn't even think about clicking on that one. Get out of here.
Do they have a couple great spots? I'm sure they do.
I don't know, man. It's just the people just fall for the most predictable clickbait. It's like, okay, Santa Fe has the best bagels. Aroo?
I love this internet, though. This is the internet I gobble up. I don't like the other part of the internet. Like, what is this color to your eyes? It's like, that's blue. It's like,
Have you
incorrect.
heard the best Tex-Mex city is Madison, Wisconsin? What?
The best chowder is not Boston. Oh,
The best Memphis barbecue is actually from Nashville.
I mean, but I could see New Haven Day One saying our pizza is superior to New York. We've been down this path.
You're already buying into their bullshit, Quo.
Yo, those pizzas are delicious. We got to take the cookies wagon and go out there, man.
Yes,
it is
fine,
delicious.
I know I broached this, and now you're just falling into more pizza talk. We've already talked about the smallest slices in town. We don't need to revisit that.
Tiny
We
Nick's? Oh, great spot. Oh, yeah. I took pictures somewhere. Tag me.
Like the size of a thumbnail, dude. You can eat like 70 pies. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's always room for Tiny Nick's.
Well, I'm glad we solved that. That grilling is, in fact, fine. Or maybe not.
It's like, so what does Cookies think about grilling? It's like, yeah, they could take it or leave it. And I'm like, oh, perfect.
My main take is a carpenter doesn't blame their tools.
Wow.
If you are good at grilling, the food will be good. If you're not good at cooking, your food will probably be bad. Like, if you are a good cook, I doubt what you grill is going to be ass cheeks.
Yeah, but what if you were a great carpenter and you had tools that were sufficient, and then someone was barking in your ear about the top 10 rappers of all time the whole time? You'd be off your game, man. They'd be like, yo, the best pizza's in Portland. You'd be like, zzz, and chop your hand off, right?
You're up to your elbows in Zweigel's White Hots.
Yeah, this is a white hot dog.
White hot culture.
Should we talk about Balenciaga or not? Is it too much of a departure from the doggage?
I want to hold off on it. Let's see what emerges. Let's see if we can do a little trend spotting.
Okay.
And we'll get into like Balenciaga and the meme economy and your boy Demna Vasilia, the god. Let's talk about that another time.
Tune in next week for that Balenciaga talk.
Speaking of ambiguity, like with grilling, the Rachel Nichols scandal.
amazing.
Scandal, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Scandal, controversy, imbroglio.
Seems like a zillion years ago at this point, but
I know, but we never. It broke right after our last perfect pod. So in order to strive for perfection, like the intro to Raekwon's album, we have to bring it up. We have to bring it up.
Yeah, the best intro of any album of all time.
Boom, boom, boom.
This is the worst song on our new album. What's up with Rachel Nichols?
So, I think we could spend time parsing the specifics of what she said and whether there was malice or truth or kernels of truth or no truth. And, I think you can get into the granular nitty gritty of what does this mean? What did she say? What is her culpability? Is she a villain?
There's a lot going on.
Those are all valid.
Yeah.
My real takeaway here, and if you're not familiar with the story, which I assume that everyone is that Rachel Nichols was recorded saying that
Hosted the jump for
ESPN, that another host, Maria Taylor, was only receiving a job as a sideline reporter, I want to say?
The host of all the NBA games and the playoffs, right? Like, she was the maestro.
Mm-hmm. She was hosting it, and it was because the NBA or the network wanted diversity. That's my understanding of it. But again, I don't really care about the exact nitty gritty. I'm just trying to give people some context if you literally are out of the loop. You probably know more about the actual nuts and bolts of this story, and I'm talking to the listeners, than I do, because I just don't really get that into the story, because I don't watch ESPN that much. I don't really know too much about Rachel Nichols. I don't really know too much about Maria Taylor. I just don't really pay attention to that stuff.
I thought you liked basketball, man.
I like basketball. I love the joy of basketball.
Available for pre-sale all your spots you buy books at, if you read.
Yeah, October 19th. So nice. My main takeaway, though, again, I'm conceding that I have not paid attention to the nitty gritty of the story.
All right, go in.
My main thing here is that Rachel Nichols is a white woman who works in the field of basketball. She is on TV with a lot of black people. She is interviewing black people. She is working in a sport that is 75% black. And that may not even be including players who are black who are from overseas. I don't know those exact numbers. So her celebrity, her income, her career, her stature, all these things are at least adjacent to or deeply connected to black culture in America. So with that in mind, I think her being supportive publicly and then seemingly unsupportive privately, and that she was working against those things that she allegedly subscribed to when it inconvenienced her, made it look like she was a very sort of specific kind of white person, which is smile in your face, stab you in the back. And to me, that was why the story is so huge. Like the nuts and bolts and the she said this and meant this. I feel like those are those can be true. Those can be worth parsing out. But to me, this is what the issue is. That for better or worse, whether it's true or not, Rachel Nichols became like an archetype, a specific archetype, a white person who smiles in your face and pretends to be on your side and then is undermining you and talking shit behind your back. And I feel like I get why people were upset.
Mm-hmm. Is that your take?
Yeah, that's my take. My take is like I get why people are heated, and I get why there is a larger conversation to be had here than just being about specifically who she is and what she said and whether she's bad and whether her apology was genuine or fake, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, we always reside in language when we talk about complicated things, but yeah, I agree. And I think if you pull back even farther, what's happening is like, yeah, there is a push for more diversity, and it happened. And she is allowed to be up in her feelings about the person who got the job that she wanted. Like, it is the job that she was gunning for. So she was up in her feelings, and but you know what you talk about with Rachel Nichols is interesting, because then people started going after her specifically. And I did not know this, but she is Mike Nichols' daughter. No, she's married to Mike Nichols' son, and Diane Sawyer is her stepmother-in-law.
I didn't know that.
And Diane Sawyer is the face of ABC, and ESPN is part of the ABC brand. So people connected those dots really fast, which was crazy to me. I was like, whoa, it does seem like there is some sort of conspiracy here to make her into a star.
I didn't know this. I don't know if it's true. I'm just listening to what you're saying, and I believe you. None of this is something that is surprising.
No, right? But Rachel Nichols is a fine host. Like, I know I poke fun at The Jump all the time, but it never occurred to me that she was bad at her job. It also never occurred to me that Maria Taylor was bad at her job. And she got a lot of heat earlier this year. I forget from whom specifically, but that she didn't know X's and O's and hoops. And she was like, yo, I played in college. I've been doing this for like a decade. Like, what are you talking about? Maria Taylor might just be the better person for the job, regardless of everything, right?
And that's part of this as well, right? That when you are Rachel Nichols and you say, the reason haven't been chosen is because I'm not black, and the reason that Maria Taylor was chosen is because she's black, you are jumping to a conclusion that is saying I'm better at this job, and that she's only there because of her race. And I feel like that's like an incredibly toxic and fucked up way to look at things too.
I mean, if we spent the last few years trying to reduce people to their color or to their gender, it's like it's hard to break free of that. And I know what you mean. It's just like I think it's incorrect too. But
it's more that she couldn't conceive that people liked Maria Taylor more.
And I like that about athletes, right? When someone's like, when DeAndre Ayton's like, we had the best draft and I was number one, I'm the best. I'm like, yeah, Rachel Nichols should feel that too. She just ran into LeBron James, or she ran out of talent, right? Like, I think she just took the L. A better team beat her team, in my opinion. And you explain it away, and she is up in her feelings, which I think, like, she probably thinks she's the best at her job, and she should, right? So to me, it's really hard to discuss all these complicated things wrapped up in ESPN mishandling all of this. Like, it's been going on for a year. Someone had leaked that audio, which was not supposed to be recorded, but they know exactly what they're doing. And they explained it being like, we didn't know it was recording. Like, we know how to use Zoom, man. Like, how did this get out? And there's a lot of intrigue there too. But I think everyone kind of is just responding to everything around them, and we can agree and disagree, but I just think it comes down to Maria Taylor's better at the job.
Well, I think there are conversations that everyone has that are with people that are not intended for public consumption. I think that happens constantly. There is a huge discrepancy about the kind of things that people are comfortable saying to their friends, to their family, in a, you know, in a closed ecosystem than they are saying, I'm going to put that on Twitter.
Oh, human beings talk shit, man. Come
Right.
on.
But of course, no, I'm saying this is everyone. We all get this. We all get this. Mm-hmm. So I think whether she's right or wrong, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, she's talking to a white person. This is like a white to white conversation. Here's what I think, fellow.
Well, her boss, person. Right? Her superior.
Well, from she was talking with LeBron's guy, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Mendelsohn, I believe.
Yeah.
But
Which
again,
is kind of her boss.
No, I'm saying it's like just a couple white people talking. Like, I mean, I'm like, as a white person, I'm not unfamiliar with these conversations that white people will try to spark with you. The amount of times when you're riding around in a white cabbie will start talking shit about people of other groups it's frequent. Yeah. They just look at you in the back of the car and they say, oh, there's a white guy. He'll like when I say something deeply fucking racist about other groups. He is white after all. Yes, whether she was right or wrong, it was just her having a little white moment over there with a white dude. But the main point here is that, going back to what I said before, that all these little small things don't really change the bigger story, which is Rachel Nichols, who, like, you know, it succeeds in the reflected glow of blackness behind closed doors, resents black people and thinks she's better than them. Like, that's the story that most people are going to take away from this, whether it's fair or not. Yeah,
for sure. That's the most... I mean, that's a dot you can connect to another dot for sure. And when she apologized, and I don't really care about language that much here, but RJ and Perkins kind of took some strays because they supported their teammates. Same with Steven Jackson. And what do you expect from these guys? ESPN did a really poor job of putting them in the line of fire because they didn't do anything. I mean, Steven Jackson offered up his own opinion, but like, don't make Richard Jefferson and Kendrick Perkins talk on this because they didn't do anything, man. So it was just like a really oddly mishandled thing. And you mentioned adults in the room earlier. I'm like, ESPN is one of the biggest companies in media, and I think they're as confused as we all are trying to discuss this. They're like, what do we do? Get Jefferson to talk about it. I'm like, no, don't do that. He didn't do anything.
Right. It's like, all right, can we get some black guys to run interference on this?
Yeah, don't do that. And don't get a white person to support her. Just like have her give an apology that would satisfy whoever needs satisfying and try to figure it out, because like people genuinely seem to like her.
I'll be honest. I don't watch The Jump too much. I don't really know her work other than seeing her interview people. She seems fine. Mm-hmm. All good. This is not a commentary on her quality as a professional. I'm sure she's really good. She wouldn't be terrible if she was in the position she is, even with family connections, most likely.
She's fine.
But she's fine, right? I don't know that you can survive this, though, because of what I just said.
Yeah. You
can parse the little ingredients. You can take them apart and say, this meant this and this meant this, and look at Tracy McGrady. He says I'm cool. Like you can do all those things, but like, end of the day, you have become the Karen. Like that, you've become a prototype. The amount of people, black people, who've said, I prefer a white person who says that they're racist in my face to one who says it behind my back. I've heard that a million times. Millions of times. And she kind of became that person.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, as an Asian person, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I believe in avoiding aggression as much as I can. But I hear that idea too. I mean, it reminds me of No Sin Bin, Jim Gray, when he interviewed Pete Rose after the scandal. And I remember, I think it was Jim Leyritz, or a Yankees player, hit like a pivotal home run in a playoff game. And Jim Gray tried to interview him coming off the field, and he was like, we're not going to talk to you anymore because of what you did to Pete. And I'm kind of deflated but interested to see what happens with Rachel Nichols, because she seems like genuinely liked by the NBA community. There was no issue before this, but little did we know this has been going on for a year. And I don't know, like, this goes into the whole, like, can people change? I don't think what she said was good. If my friend said that, I'd be like, yo, I'm not really into that, But she's talking about kind of she's also talking about a distinct structural thing, sort of like affirmative action at Harvard ended up hurting Asian people more than anybody, and that's a thing we can talk about. It doesn't have to be shrouded in hatred. It's just a policy that led to Asian applicants not being able to go to Harvard as much.
And yes, and this conversation could even tie into ones that have been had about like Becky Hammond and where do white women fall into this category of people who have been
so tricky. I don't know.
Limited professionally, and like, should we be more concerned about Becky Hammond not getting a job with Portland than there being more black coaches? Because going into this offseason, I believe last year there were only 7 out of 30 teams. Like, Becky Hammond gets a lot of attention. Why doesn't she have a job? But I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a good take here. I'm saying, what do you prioritize? Like, is it worth going out there and saying we need Becky Hammond to get a job right now because we need a woman coach, or saying, well, it looks like there's some progress. It looks like some black men are being hired as coaches, and that's really important in the NBA, and probably more important than a white woman getting a coaching job. I don't know. These are all tricky. All tricky,
and my optimist glass half full brain would say, like, this is progress. It moves slow, and sometimes it's like watching the sun rise or grass grow. Like, you can't really observe the change, but it's happening for sure. I have no schadenfreude here with Rachel Nichols, this whole story. I just feel like it should be turned into something good, because the bad part of it, which I see a lot on my Twitter feed, is just like, it's a trap and you're just be caught in fucking darkness.
Yeah, I have no particular take on what should happen, or whether she was right or wrong. I don't even have a specific. I don't care enough about her, and I don't care enough about what she said.
This is the thing, right? Like, does she matter?
Money
came out,
but no, she doesn't. Yeah. She doesn't matter.
The money thing came out where I might be getting this wrong, but I think she makes $1 million a year. Maria Taylor does, and Maria Taylor's up for contract extension, and she wanted 5. She said she wanted that Stephen A money. I'm like, Stephen A is wonderful. I think he is a comedian, a performer, an entertainer. Maria Taylor seems like a really strong journalist and host. And to me, I don't know how to equate those two things, but yeah, give her $5 million. Ratings are up in the NBA. give her the $5 million.
Yeah, I don't really watch like halftime shows. I don't watch NBA television religiously or basically at all.
The Jump is a good show, man.
I've never watched it.
Oh man, I have a whole afternoon thing. Jalen and Jacoby, highly questionable, homies of the pod.
I mean, I've listened to all those guys, but I've never watched The Jump.
The Jump is okay. I don't agree with most of the talking heads there, but it's fun to disagree with, like, Perkins. And Perkins got famous on that show, man. Like, he became a personality. They do a draft show that I find kind of a little too playful, because this is serious Knicks stuff going on. But I have nothing against that show. I didn't even think about that show in these terms until last week.
Well, there you have it. We've come up with no solutions to grilling, no solutions to the Rachel Nichols controversy.
I think we did come up with a solution to the grilling, which is kind of sucks sometimes.
Oh, okay. Let's just apply that to the gay cold. We can apply that to the Tokyo Olympics. We can apply that to Rachel Nichols. I feel like we really nailed it down.
Don't get me started on Dave Grohl. Save it for the next pod.
Stuff sucks sometimes.
Yeah, and we have to, like, talk about it.
On a more positive note, and you're going to be very excited by this, because you care more than anyone I know about NBA ratings. You wake up in the morning, go to bed at night, wringing your hands over will the NBA ratings go up or down? And I've got good news for you, Andrew.
They're up.
The finals ratings are up. Yes, we fucking did it. Congrats, dude.
Thanks.
Finals ratings are up over last year.
Did you know that the movie, the film, The Accountant, starring Ben Affleck, was about me checking finals ratings?
I did.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I knew that.
Not many people know that, but we'll just say it. That was about me religiously checking those numbers, scanning over those digits.
You must be floating on gossamer wings today.
I feel
You must
good.
just be like, I've never seen you this high on the hog.
I feel fantastic, man. I was proven right. Ratings are up. Everyone else is
Ratings
down.
king.
Yeah. Being right is up. Being wrong is down. Yo, shout out to the Bucks and Suns with that cultural strength, that day one NBA culture, floating the whole league with their finals matchup.
Yeah, we are being facetious. We don't care
Speak for
whatsoever
yourself.
about. I know you do, but I'm saying ratings. I remain mystified when NBA fans discuss the ratings. Oh, they're up, they're down.
Listen,
Why do you care?
Ballmer is gonna have to pay a luxury tax. He should not have to pay that luxury tax.
It's like, look, unless you think they're going to shut down the NBA
exactly.
because not enough people are watching it on TV, why do you care? Bad news. Nielsen ratings went down 15%. Looks like we're going to have to watch hockey.
Did you see that kind of emo moment Skip Bayless had? Great villain, whatever. He was like, I miss LeBron. And I was like, yes, fucking, there's a crack in there. But he kind of reveals himself a little bit there that I thought was really sweet, because I also miss LeBron here. Not because I don't think this finals matchup is awesome. I think it's really cool. I think there's a lot to talk about, and something is going to happen that we'll remember forever. But I do miss the King not being here. I got spoiled. He's always here.
That's true. Yeah, I looked at it as not small market, but that these are teams that don't have recent narrative tales. They don't have the biggest superstars in the game in terms of who we're interested in. Giannis is two-time MVP out of the last 3 years. He is an absolute superstar.
Yeah.
But he's not Kyrie. He's not LeBron. He's not Kevin Durant. He's not James Harden. He's not someone that we talk about a lot. He's not someone that we have too much vested into.
He's not interesting. He's not an evolved character like those other guys are, right?
Right, and great player. And sure, there are people who, he should shoot, he shouldn't shoot, he's overrated, he's under. We all know he's great.
Yeah.
But I agree. He is not, in terms of this being operatic, this being characters who have rises and falls and people who are stars. He is an ancillary figure despite his greatness.
Yeah, I agree.
In that kind of cast of characters, where of course LeBron is, Kobe, rest in peace, were the peak of this, where conversations emanated from them and comparisons emanated from them. And then someone like Giannis and Lillard, they're in the mix, but they're minor deities in terms of this cast of characters.
Yeah.
And I think Chris Paul is also a relatively minor character, except it's odd because we've been rooting for Chris Paul for ages because he's the best point guard who ever lived. Yeah. It's so weird when people are like, "Oh, I just want Chris Paul to win." Like, were you there shooting with me in the gym? No. So Chris Paul is odd because now everyone seemingly likes him, and
Weird.
That doesn't make him a more compelling character. I liked it when he was very divisive because he's a psychopath and he's whiny and he's micromanaging, and feel like, I hate this dude because he reminds me of people that I hate on the court. He's dirty, and everyone's like, I've come to appreciate his dirtiness and micromanagement. I'm like, no. Root against him. He's more interesting being rooted against. It's all kind of based in like sympathy / respect greatness.
It's just because he won a
the
bunch
idea
of
of respecting.
games.
Yes, the idea of respecting greatness is boring.
Yeah.
Don't respect greatness.
Yeah.
Disrespect greatness.
I don't want to talk about Ben Simmons, but there's that image of Simmons shooting, and I think it's AD, Chris Paul, Harden, and LeBron laughing at him, and it goes viral to drag Ben Simmons, being like, look at these great players not even respecting Ben Simmons in the way I don't respect Ben Simmons. What I see in that picture is 5 dudes who have been pummeled by fan takes. Like, all those guys have gone through, no pun intended, the ringer, and they're all have either been quitters, chokers, cheaters, all that stuff, stat hogs. And when I say the Giannis isn't as evolved as like Kyrie Irving or KD, there's a new book out that's coming out about the Nets, and we're finding out more about these two guys and Harden. They're incredible people. Like, I think they've just evolved past the idea of the Michael Jordan superstar into people with new ideas and new behaviors. And they're compelling on the court in a way because all of this stuff kind of comes together in the visual experience. So when Kevin Durant rises to greatness or fails in a last-second shot, it's so loaded with so many cultural discussions. When Giannis kind of fails, it just doesn't matter, right?
You mentioned this podcast to me, and I have not checked it out yet. What was the spiciest detail that you remember?
Oh my God, it was crazy. This guy who wrote this book, I can Google it later, was on Le Batard, and he followed the Nets around kind of the last 2 or 3 years, and he was just like, he was letting it all fly. Kevin Durant, like, it strikes me as kind of a sad guy. Smokes weed constantly, all moments of the day. Only smokes in his car, and only hoops. Like, all he cares about is hoops. Steve Kerr trying to wean him off of social media. The whole divisive, like, Golden State years. Kyrie Irving, like, his thoughts about Boston, about, like, not hating, and I'm paraphrasing all this, it's in the book, but it's like maybe not necessarily hating the franchise, but refusing to do the bidding of that city, just because of the history of that city. It was, that stuff is wild, and the author was very frank, but he painted the pictures, these guys, as complex and kind of stories within themselves and right about everything.
That sounds great. I gotta listen to the pod. The book sounds cool too.
Yeah.
Book is called The Joy of Basketball.
Available on Abrams Books. Go to cookieshoops.com to pre-order your copy today.
It's all in there. All this stuff.
There's some scandalous stuff in our book. A little, I don't want to tease too much, but a little Sixers intrigue is discussed.
People should beware the little green hand. That's all I'm going to say.
Anyway, but you know what I mean about the star power in these finals. This is like a celebration of basketball, I think, which is cool. But sometimes it's cool, especially after the years we just had, like LeBron James is a complex dude, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, all these players you mentioned are, after you ask them one question about did they want to win the game enough, there's a whole bevy of questions that you can ask them about, like racial injustice, about player empowerment, all these wonderful things, or not wonderful things, but important things. And Giannis and CP3 don't really have that in their bag, right?
I mean, I think CP3 certainly does.
Player empowerment, for sure.
But it's not necessarily as part of his
brand.
Story. I mean, I think it's part of his brand, but maybe not his story. Just because he just hasn't been as big of a star in recent years as those guys are. Like, he hasn't been as compelling of a figure. Yeah. He's just been known as this incredibly good aging point guard, basically.
And head of the Players Union, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess where I was going to say, though, is like, so this finals, I don't think winning titles will ever not matter. And I'm not raising that specter. But what's happened in recent years has kind of been interesting, because the Golden State Chips, we all knew that team was too stacked to lose. Like that they were too good.
Too good.
So we don't view those rings as being like particularly legitimate in the way that like Michael Jordan's rings were, or even LeBron's win against Golden State was. Right. I'm saying we just view them differently.
Yeah, they were too good. It was too easy for them.
It was too easy for them. It was too easy. And then when Kawhi beat them, they were hurt. So like, well, Kawhi got a ring, and you already had one, but this one, he was great, and you play who you play. But we also know Golden State was the better team. Then you have the bubble, and we're like, all right, the Heat were good, but it was also an odd situation. And like Anthony Davis got his ring, and we're like, yeah, who fucking cares? We just don't care about Anthony Davis getting a ring. Like, and then you have this year with all these injuries. Things may change, but we have seen this time of like super teams and super players and being like, oh, this is so important. Like, you've got to get your ring and you've got to do this. Now guys move all over the place. We're going to have like, I don't know, what am I saying? 5, 6 years, 7 years when we haven't really cared that much about who won a title. That may be a brink of something new. It could totally go back another direction. But if Chris Paul wins it this year, we're like, oh, that's cool. There was a lot of injuries, but Chris Paul got his ring. That's sick. Kawhi beat a team that was hurt. Even the Lakers beat a team that missed Bam Adebayo and Dragic. The Warriors didn't really matter. Like, we're kind of rolling into like a decade of not really giving a shit about who wins a ring as it being like a defining point of someone's life and career necessarily.
Yo, influencer culture is on the ropes, for sure. And I think this finals is a great example of that. It doesn't feel ceremonial. Like, there was so much action. There's always action around the first and second rounds. Even the conference finals has less juice than the second round, in my opinion. And now we see these players, and it's just like, okay, like Anthony Davis, to your point. It's like, Giannis, you can get one, or Chris Paul, you can get one. You guys are both deserving of a championship, for sure. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to fight you on that. Ooh, yes. LeBron James gets one over my dead body, like...
That's I guess that's what I'm getting at. You kind of are nailing it down here, is that we had Kobe and LeBron dominated the NBA to such an extent from like, what do we argue about? What do we talk about? Mm-hmm. What do we care about? That it was like, can Kobe win without Shaq? Who deserves it, Kobe or Shaq? And then it was like, can Kobe beat the Celtics? And you would, and then you had like LeBron rises, and then can LeBron get his way there? And there's like no stakes anymore. Yeah. Because Kobe passed away. LeBron is in likely some of his final years, and he's the greatest. And whatever you feel about that versus MJ is not going to change based on anything that occurs going forward. True. We've just reached this sort of point of like neutral buoyancy.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been different if the Nets were healthy. I think people would have been really up in arms over that small market team. Like, can a small market team win a championship with these small market players who don't want the spotlight?
But again, right, we still view the Nets as better than the Bucks, who might win the title, and they are better than the Bucks. They would have beaten the Bucks if they had two of their healthy stars, not to mention three.
Yeah, the Nets are the best. The Nets are terrifying and are still the best team in the NBA.
Like, the Nets won that series if Kevin Durant gets his toe behind the line. This wasn't like,
it's insane.
Oh, the Bucks were... No, man. Yeah. No. The Nets were much better than the Bucks. They almost beat them with 1.5 of their best 3 players.
Yeah, man. And shout out to the Bucks, who were down their best player, Dante DiVincenzo.
The Bucks are good.
They're very good. I mean, there's a lot of Sixers talk being like, we could have... the Bucks... I think the Bucks would have beat Doc Rivers.
Well, yeah, that's my take. Is yes, they had an easy route to the finals, but they were not going to get by the Bucks with Doc Rivers. They weren't going to beat the Suns with Doc Rivers. So no need to get upset about it. Right. My only Philly quick take here is that, when you see people clamoring for Ben Simmons to be traded because that'll help the Sixers, those are the same people who clamored for Brett Brown to be fired. Yeah. Until they made so much noise that the Sixers went ahead and did it. And them not having Brett Brown cost them a trip to the finals, maybe a title. No doubt in my mind. But Brett Brown never in his life loses that series to the Hawks. Never in his life.
They were the same people who were patient and understanding of the whole Markelle Fultz situation, right?
And they're the same people who love Sam Hinkie in real time.
Right.
Like when you want to judge the best, avenue forward for a team, probably a consensus from the fan base is an unproductive approach. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do a straw poll. What should we do, fans?
I mean, Philly's so, not to get into Sixers talk, but Morey's in charge, and that's just like a gift to that franchise, man. Because he's not going to he may trade Ben Simmons. He may trade Joel Embiid. But whatever he does, like, they're in good hands, man.
Yeah, I don't even have anything else to say about the Sixers other than that. Like, I'm glad Morey's in charge. Because the same people who want to upheave the roster are the same people who demanded that Doc Rivers or that Brett Brown be fired, and then we got Doc Rivers, who, in my opinion, put together a coaching fiasco for the ages in the second round of this series, but also the first round and also the whole second half of the season. I view it as like beyond insane, like totally crazy. Like that's a longer conversation from the time I walk around and just go into a daze occasionally and be like, I cannot believe Doc Rivers did that shit this season. I cannot believe he spiked a championship opportunity into the toilet for no reason, just because he would not change. Really nutty to me,
He
man.
saw Dwight in Orlando, and he was just like, I've gotten to the finals with this player before, and I'll get to the finals with this player again.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I like Doc. I like him personally. He's a king.
I mean, he should be he should be the NBA czar, right?
I just cannot believe what he did down the stretch. I can't believe it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's sort of like when I walk around seething about IQ and not wanting it enough. And the Knicks should be in the finals, to be honest. I mean, they beat the Hawks, then they beat Doc and the Sixers, and then a tough battle versus the Bucks, but we get past the Bucks too. Knicks championships, baby.
Did Dwight ever intersect with Doc in Orlando? I don't think they did. I think they're 1 year apart.
Am I mistaken? I thought Doc coached Dwight Howard.
I believe the year that they were terrible and then got the number one pick, Doc was replaced after that year. So Doc kind of brought them Dwight Howard. So maybe that's why he has such a affinity for him. Right. Where he's like, they fired me and I didn't get to coach Doc, and God damn it, I'm doing it now.
Possibly, man. Loyalty is a great trait, but not when you're gambling, essentially, right? It's just like, well, I usually do this at the blackjack table. I'm like, adjust to the hand, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, look, when people say, if only Daryl Morey had gone out and gotten a stretch big, if only he had gone out and gotten a doofus, a Muscala, a Cornet, this all could have been avoided. I disagree. I don't think there was any situation in which Dwight was not getting backup center minutes. I do not believe it. That you would have brought in Frank Kaminsky and Doc says, oh, cool, Frank is here. Okay, great. We're going to run Frank and Ben's second units, and we're going to go and put Dwight on the bench. I do not believe that would have happened, and I believe that's why Morey didn't go out and spend draft assets to get one of those guys. Because I think he knew that Doc would not change his ways. Maybe made a promise to Dwight. He said, hey, you come here for the veteran minimum, and you will get the backup minutes. I promise you that, dude. You were going to be the backup center. Maybe. But, we know, Game 7, we all knew the lineups that worked. We all knew the ones that didn't. Game 7, season on the line, he brought in Dwight. Like, it is what it is.
To bring this back into the finals, if the Sixers make the finals...
Thank you.
The Sixers make the finals with the whole stories around them. Do you think the finals rating, not to read into ratings, but do you think people enjoy like a Disney kind of story of Giannis versus CP3 over like the vitriol of like Philly versus LA? Like, is influencer culture on the ropes?
I don't know if more people are watching this year because they're intrigued by CP3 or they're intrigued by watching Giannis. I never believed that people weren't watching because of the Bubble's signage saying Black Lives Matter. I never believed that had an impact on viewership at all.
No, that maybe gained viewership, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's more like, oh, it's not in the bubble and it's back in stadiums and I've been paying attention to basketball this year because I actually went to a game, or like it's not the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And things are more normal, and now I'm watching it at a sports bar and I'm seeing my friends and we're talking about it. I don't know. I'm sure there are people
Super noisy. Yeah.
who are
Also,
really
July.
into ratings like you.
I'm super into ratings. Ben Affleck, shout out to him playing me in the movies on the big screen. But I think
the normal timing of when the NBA playoffs are, I think was helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think it was helpful this time for that game to like fall during like a holiday week where people are like kind of emerging from their slumbers and like, I mean, to be honest, this is a great series, right? Like this is really good basketball in my opinion. They're not perfect teams by any means, but like these are two of the better teams in the league. And I thought the first game was exciting, man. So I don't know. I don't think basketball, I think people tune in and out as they get older, and it's just like kind of this weird ebb and flow. I used to throw a lot of parties in New York City, Jesus, back in the day. And promoters would be like, how can you bring people to my bar on a Tuesday night? And my answer was always, the theme of this perfect pod, was, I don't know. It's kind of like this weird nebulous thing where I could bring everyone through on one Tuesday, and the next Tuesday could be crickets, and I attribute that to vibes. I don't know, you know?
I mean, this is when you were throwing the hottest parties in Hoboken.
Oh, giant slices, or the tiniest slices. Come through and find out.
On next week's episode of
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.